Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I don't know about what you've been doing recently, but for me, I've been indulging in a lot of Sam and Max. And Sam and Max is a series about two freelance police officers who take on the most absurd situations imaginable. And it was a series I've been aware of for a long time, but only recently have I begun to get into it. I watched the entire animated series, which is a very short lived show. It only lasted one season. And I also played the remaster of Sam and Max Save the World, which was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And I also watched a long play of their first game, Sam and Max Hit the Road. So it's a small franchise, but it's a small franchise with content, I guess. But today I'm going to be talking about the animated series, which is, I believe the full title is, The Adventures of Sam and Max or whatever, because I wasn't going to review this originally, but I was looking on YouTube and there's surprisingly like barely any Sam and Max reviews of the animated series. There's like one by the Nostalgia Critic of all people. And I'm like, okay, I should probably make a few videos about this show so that if there are people like me who want to watch video reviews of this show, then they'll have other options. So, what is Sam and Max about? Let me go over the premise first, because there might be people watching who don't know Sam and Max. Basically, these two characters, a dog, Sam, and a rabbit-y thing, possibly, maybe, I think so, Max. I just said they're freelance police officers, and basically in this show, a lot of people will say like the show has no story and stuff, and it has a story. It's one of those premises where it's so out there that like they could do almost anything with it, I feel. Because when I say they're freelance police officers, that doesn't mean they're just stopping crime and stuff. Like, this can be anything from, like, celestial cosmic entities to, like, gods to, like, delivering an artificial heart to the president to all sorts of crazy things that just, like, total insanity is this show. I think a lot of people would agree that it's a good definition of this show, is just total insanity. And it was... At first, like when I first began watching the show, I was thinking to myself, "Oh, this is so good. This is so excellent. This is right like keyed into my sense of humor. I love it." And then I kept watching. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm liking it as much." And then I kept watching and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm liking this more again." And then I finished watching and I was like, "Wow, I really enjoyed that." So it took me a while to not so much to adjust, because the humor in this show is very fast-paced, very rapid, just like beat after beat after beat after beat of like just this very unique sense of humor, which I feel like you really don't see in a lot of cartoons of the time, and feels very ahead of its time in a lot of ways. It feels like a more recent show. Like, this show came out in 1997, and it doesn't feel stale. It has a lot of energy, and a big appeal of the show for me is the two characters of Sam and Max. I love their dynamic and their relationship and their whole like they're so keyed in to the same wavelength, if that makes sense. Like, it's so nice to see these two characters where it's like there isn't like some cheap melodrama episode thrown in, because they understand each other so well and they get along so well. And it's so nice to have those characters sometimes where they understand each other and they get each other and they just are on that same wavelength. And it's nice because, like, I feel like in a lot of shows of the time there would be like some misunderstanding or something, but this show really never goes there, at least for a full episode. Like, there are some minor occurrences. Like, there's one episode where where Max is declared king and he wants to stay, but Max wants to leave, and so that's a bit of conflict. But even then, they still care about each other a lot. Like, they're still such good, I don't want to say friends, because we see them getting married and at the beginning, so maybe they're more than friends. That's an aside, I should say. There's a lot of people who feel that Sam and Max are in fact a couple, And there are a lot of older fans who feel that Sam and Max are not a couple. And I'm not going to speak for the entire franchise. There's certainly some incriminating evidence. But for this show, I feel like it's very plausible that they're a couple. Not only do I just mentioned we see them getting married in the opening, not the opening, we see them getting married in the first episode in a flashback. And they live in the same house together. They spend holidays together. Like, we see them spending Christmas at Sam's grandmother's house. It's like they don't show any interest in women throughout the show, and usually there's usually when women show interest in them, for some reason or another, they show a disinterest or an aversion. And so there are all these things adding up within the show itself, which I would feel, if you wanted to say that these two are a couple, then I think it's plausible in the show. In the video games, I'm not so sure, where there is stuff in the game. This is a whole tangent now. This has just turned into a whole tangent. But long story short, I just wanted to comment on that, because that's a big part of recent Sam and Max fandom that I wanted to comment on. But yeah, so as I was saying, their whole relationship and dynamic, absolutely fantastic, absolutely loved it. Now, Sam and Max, they are the two main characters, but they're not the only central characters, I guess you could say. There is the character which is specifically added in for the show, called the Geek. And by the way, that is a name for a character that would not originate in any other decade other than the 90s. It's like, you hear that name and it's like, yeah, this character's called the Geek, and it's like, yep, it's a 90s show, I can tell. Like, it is very specifically the late 90s with a name like that. But she's basically, their super smart gadget person and stuff, who like lives underneath their office in like a cave. And she doesn't appear too often, but she usually is there as like a character to maybe give a bit more information or give them a gadget or something. And there's also, I guess I could also include the Commissioner, who we never see. He is an enigma, but we know he's the one giving Sam and Max, doling out their missions. So I feel like now that I've talked about all that, I feel like I should give what the basics of an episode for this show will be like. But that's incredibly difficult because, as I've said, like, the basic premise is that Sam and Max go on these really crazy missions, but they vary so dramatically that it's difficult for me to like describe an overall repeated pattern, other than Sam and Max go on missions / adventures. Like in the first episode, there's an interdimensional portal within Geek's refrigerator. That's the first episode. And in the second episode, they like go into space to stop like a cosmic entity. And then in the third episode, they're like in the woods with like a tribe of guinea pigs, and it's like it changes wildly. And then there's another episode which is like a Valentine's Day episode, where like the whole episode they're trying to get their car back, and it's like, so they have a variety, like a very strong variety of ideas and concepts in the show. It doesn't, there's never a point where I felt like, okay, things are getting repetitive, you know what I mean? It stays fresh throughout, and and obviously with every show, some episodes are better than others, but one thing that, like, even if the episode wasn't hitting me as hard with the comedy as I would have liked, the one thing which kept me going was that relationship between Sam and Max, because they're just, like, they're so likable, and I love the voice performances in this show. The voice actor for Max specifically, I think this is probably quite possibly my favorite Max voice actor, voice performance. The character of Max is very, I guess destructive maybe would be a right word. He's maybe violent, more specific, but a very violent character. He has a propensity for wanton destruction. But I don't feel like that summarizes him well enough, because he's so adorable and joyous, and yet terrifying at the same time, complementing that adorability of his design. He's just I really love that character. And what I believe the voice actor is Rob Tinkler, which that's not a good last name. I feel very sorry for him. But something fantastic about the voice in the show is that there's so, like, the enthusiasm he brings is so intense, and there's almost, I don't want to say a childlike element to him, but there is a childlike joy in the way he revels in the destruction and violence that he yearns for, and it comes together complementing the design where you have that adorability and yet you also have the comedy of it. And he just brings, it's like, it's all these elements, and I just love his performance. And also the guy doing Sam is also very good. Both of these voice actors are only in the cartoon, by the way. They don't do any of the video games. Not to disparage, I like the video game voice actors as well. I think there's never been, like, from all the Sam and Max voices I've heard, even though they change up the voice actors a lot, there's never been a moment where I'm like, I think this voice actor just does not work. Even if it's not my preferred voice for something, then I still can buy into the character a lot of the times. But definitely, I won't say this is my favorite Sam, but this is definitely my favorite Max, I think. But yeah, that's the major things I wanted to say about this show. And I think I might actually want to say more about it. I am considering doing a review of every single episode, because at the beginning, as I said, there's so little content on YouTube about this cartoon. It's mostly just compilations, and I feel like I just want to make some more videos about it for people who maybe want to watch some video reviews of the show. So keep an eye out, coming soon. Sam and Max episode reviews coming to the channel. Subscribe if you want to see that. But yeah, that's all I gotta say for now. But once we get to episode 1, I'll have a lot more to say. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to like or dislike, or leave a comment down below on your thoughts on Sam and Max and the Sam and Max show. It's not called the Sam and Max show. It's called Sam and Max freelance. Wait, no, is it Sam and Max the Animated? It has a very long title. Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. I just rambled about it for 13 minutes. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you have a lovely day. Stay tuned for more Sam and Max, and if you're not staying tuned for more Sam and Max, then don't worry, because I got other videos coming as well. Yeah, thank you, and I'm ending the video now because I've been rambling and I should probably stop. So again, thank you for watching.